Welcome to your source of comic book news and culture. I'm Lewis.
And I'm Kevin.
So it's been a little while since our big return with the footage from the New York Comic Con last fall. We actually shot another episode in December, but we won't be releasing that. Let's just say it's been a while since we've done this show on a weekly basis, and it looked like we forgot a few things.
Yeah, it was mostly my fault. It feels like for behind the scenes that we're pretty much starting over. So we got a new camera, new equipment, new editing software. I'll be honest, I thought we could just jump in and go, but it really wasn't the case. I hate to apologize, but sorry for the huge delay. I think we've conquered what we needed to figure out, so on with the show.
Now, to get us back in the swing of things, we're going to keep this very easy with this show. Some news, reviews, and a new segment I'd like to call Fanboy Vocabulary.
Yeah, I think it's something you wanted to do since before we stopped the show the first time around.
Yeah, but we had a little too much in our mouth that we were chewing off and trying to do, and it just became too much. But here's Kevin with the news.
Here are your headlines for the week of February 17th, 2014. I'm going to keep it short and sweet this week. We'll start off with Toy Fair. It's that time of year again, and this past weekend saw the New York Toy Fair. And as it comes before the big summer season, we saw previews of lots of upcoming comic book related stuff. From Guardians of the Galaxy to Captain America and the Winter Soldier to the return of some cool Batman animated style figures. Tons more Funko Pop vinyl figures, Turtles, Transformers, and here's looking at you, Nick, Godzilla. Oh, and Lego. Seems like everyone is talking about Lego these days. They must have released a new movie or game or something. Now on to more traditional comic news. The world continues to turn, with more Marvel Now relaunches and more DC New 52 cancellations. Don't get us wrong, we're not that cynical. Marvel and DC seem to keep the asses in the seats, so to speak, and the stores open. Now, Superior Spider-Man is ending. Could he be returning in time for the new movie? Oh, and look who this is. Guess DC does listen to fans sometimes. And in a reverse of the usual, big-time creators either leaving the big two or expanding out into creator-owned territory, Greg Rucka is slated to return to Marvel to write a new Cyclops ongoing series, actually the first. But which one? Cover your ears. Looks like the younger Ruby Quartz bespeckled Scott Summers will survive the trial of Jean Grey. We're told to expect a fun take on Cyclops, and given this art, a swashbuckling one as well. Valiant is continuing their streak of strong titles following their Unity event with a new Valiant First initiative. Expect 7 new #1 issues beginning in May with Rye by Matt Kindt and Clayton Crane, to be followed by the Armor Hunters, the Delinquents, and the return of Dr. Mirage. Okay, that's it for the news this week. Up next is Lewis with a new segment, Fanboy Vocabulary.
All right, guys. Welcome to a new segment here on Varied Edition that we have very affectionately titled Fanboy Vocab, where we take the time to break down certain words and meanings to all those big words and sophisticated themes that we see in today's comic books that a lot of new readers or people who have been out of the loop for a while aren't that much familiar with. Now, our first word, let's start with what probably is the most important word you'll ever need to know or understand in order to hold your own in case you get into an argument regarding a certain character or story. And that word, let's say it with me, kids, continuity. In fiction, continuity, also known as the time scheme, is consistency of the characteristics of people, plot, objects, and places seen by the reader or viewer over some period of time. It is relevant to several media outlets, such as films, TV, books, miniseries, all that stuff, but for now, we'll just stick to the funny books. Now, for some people, continuity is a big deal. It can be a serious deal breaker for a lot of people who have been following certain characters and teams, etc. for a long time and really don't like having the status quo of that foundation of that particular book messed with too much. For example, let's say a writer takes over an Avenger book and takes a team in a total different direction. It ignores everything that has come before and in some ways alters the team and characters in a way that makes them somewhat unrelatable to the reader, thus making interest in the book wane. Because of a lack of what? Continuity. There you go. Of what's come before and which shapes and molded some of these characters into the people they are currently today. Which leads us to our word for next week, retcon. See you then.
First up for me this week is Black Science. Now, there's been a couple issues of this come out, so I'm going to kind of give an overview of the first 3 issues. This is a great new book by Rick Remender, Matteo Scalera, and colors by Dean White. And they all really matter. We're going to get to them in a second. Rick Remender seems to be on a tear lately, okay? He has a bunch of new books coming out. They're all great. Black Science, for me, is the one I've been most excited about, and it's the one that I've enjoyed the most so far. Plus, it has the most issues. Basically, we've liked Rick Remender for a very long time. He does science fiction very well. Remember The Fear Agent. All big fans of that. This is another one of those large concept ideas that is going to go somewhere that I don't think any of us can expect. The premise is this. There is a group of scientists called the Anarchist Order of Scientists. Now, imagine a group of scientists who just got tired with having to deal with funding and ethics and everything else. They want to push the boundaries of science for the sake of science, okay? So they find their own funding through whatever means and start doing some really interesting stuff. In this case, push the boundaries of interdimensional travel, okay? So they actually managed to punch a hole into the fourth dimension and slide through. Now, of course, being comics and this being a science fiction story, things don't quite work the way they're supposed to. And we jump into the story, mid-critical problem, okay? There's a big issue going on. They can't get home. They don't know where they are. Nothing's working the way it's supposed to. And the art really sells this whole concept of this alien world, okay? Matteo Scalera has a very, kinetic style, okay? And he doesn't quite look like a lot of other artists that are out there. And the colors by Dean White make the world look very alien, yet at the same time very familiar, okay? So the first issue is all about them trying to figure out what happened. And like, okay, great, let's go home. Second issue, they don't end up going home, okay? And they're into more trouble. And it seems like this series has a lot of potential because of that. It's, it's one of those tropes that's happened before where, people kind of go out, they get stuck, they don't have a way home, but they need to have adventures and try to figure out their way home. Given Remender, who knows how he's going to take this? They could be back home in the 6th issue and back out, or they could be on the run forever. This is a great, great series. It seems like, the sky literally is the limit. In the second and third issue, there's a whole story about, it looks like World War I, but there's like American Indians, except they have high tech. I mean, it's crazy. This is a series where they don't just kind of really open up Pandora's box of possibilities. They've literally jumped into it. Anything can happen.
Now, for those of you that know, Miracle Man / Marvel Man is a pretty important character who has a very rich history, both in the books and in legal terms. Let's just put it this way. There hasn't been a Miracle Man story in a very long time because of X amount of reasons, but Mighty Marvel has stepped in, waved its magical Disney Mickey Mouse wand, and now owns the character for all intents and purposes, and is reintroducing the world to Mickey Moran. The original stories from the 1980s groundbreaking series are being reprinted and recolored and put out for all the masses to see who this Miracle Man is, what's his story, and what effect will he have in modern-day comics and quite possibly the Marvel Universe as a whole. Written by the original writer whose name we dare not speak because he wishes to have no affiliation with the rejuvenation, that rhymes, with any of his projects, let alone this one, and series artist Gary Leach, Miracle Man is a man shrouded in mystery. Between bad dreams and head-splitting migraines, Mickey Moran is a man who seems to be in pain and somewhat tormented by his mundane existence. Mickey is a local reporter covering a story about a local plutonium plant which, back in the 80s, was a very new, exciting, and kind of a scary thing in the world. A potentially disastrous situation arises, and just like that, Miracle Man reemerges in a glorious flash of blinding light and earth-trembling thunder. This is a very well-crafted story, even by today's standards, and the art is on point with a great recoloring job by Kellistration, Michael Kaleher, and series artist Gary Leach. These pages have truly stood the test of time. You get a really nostalgic feel for the state of comics when this series originally started, and the excitement that went with the beginning of this mysterious journey. As a reader, you're very intrigued as to how this character came to be and how the story is going to unfold with a very shady character in the background who shares some type of connection to our rediscovered hero. I'm really looking forward to see how the story develops and what secrets will be revealed in the coming issues, and ultimately, what will become of our hero when master storyteller Neil Gaiman jumps back on the book he was supposed to write 20 years ago.
So now I'm taking a look at Midas Flesh. This is a new series from Boombox. There's 2 issues so far, so again, it's a little bit more of a catch-up review. It's from writer Ryan North with art by Shelley Pereline and Braden Lamb. Now, this is a very fresh idea. That's actually an old idea as well. It starts with a be careful what you wish for. Okay, have you ever wanted the Midas touch? Well, this story imagines that somebody got it, and then the catastrophic results that are just the beginning of the story. So it's like the first half of the first issue is about kind of what you think, this whole Midas touch thing. The second half through the next part of the story is where it kind of really starts, okay? So the story really picks up where we kind of jump into the present, where we see a group on a spacecraft approaching something, Okay. It ends up that it's Earth, and as the first part of the issue has happened, Earth is now covered in gold. And I'm not going to get into too many of the details here because it's actually really fun to read through this and see how they figure it out, and it's really enjoyable. But basically, this story has very clean, cartoonish art, and it kind of really hides the complexity of the story that it's telling. So if you take a quick look at it, you're just going to think, oh, this is, it's got some really cartoony. I'm not really into that stuff. Actually, it's got a really cool story, and it's at times an adventure story, at times a heist story, at times science fiction. It's all tied together, and with the central core concept of this, golden Midas touch thing. And 2 issues in, I know they've just barely touched the surface of this. It's kind of this big mystery, big adventure, space travel, talking dinosaurs. It kind of has everything. I may not be doing it enough service in this review, but I also don't want to give too much of it away. And the first 2 issues are really the setup, I think, for the whole story. And then stuff is really going to start picking up. So definitely pick up this book. It's something different. And that's definitely what, is keeping comics so fresh these days. And this is a lot of fun.
Now, if you guys want great art that really hits you without all those fancy splash pages and great dialogue that really captures the feel of a fun, cheesy sci-fi movie with a solid story and fun characters, then this is your book. Rocket Girl is a time travel story of a young teenage cop named Dae-young Johannesson, who volunteers to go back in time to the 1980s of all times to stop some bad things from happening, and naturally, she gets in a little over her head. Amy Reeder, who is a series artist and co-creator on the book, has a great dynamic style. It's very vibrant, and it's really raw, just bursting with energy from every panel on the page, from her composition and foreground work on the characters to a very lively background with debris flying all over the place and tight fighting sequences. You can't help but to be just engulfed by the action and just want to rip to the next page to see what happens next. Brandon Montclair, who is the co-writer and co-creator of the book, keeps things simple with a very approachable story you can just jump right into, even if you missed the first issue or 2, without feeling completely lost. He fleshes out the characters in a way that's very easily approachable and easy to remember and not bogging everybody down with just too much backstory. This book is absolutely nothing but fun and very enjoyable, and I cannot wait to see how the story ends and what further adventures these characters get into the future, with no pun intended.
So now I'm going to take a look at Letter 44 by Oni Press. This is a book, there's been 4 issues out so far, so it's a little bit of a catch-up. It's written by Charles Soule with art by Alberto Jimenez Albuquerque. Now, this is a very strong concept book, which seems to be a theme with a lot of the books I've been reviewing. Every time there's a new president, the old president, who's leaving office, leaves a letter, kind of a, hey, welcome to the president, welcome to the office, here's some things you should know, good luck, whatever. I'm sure they're different from everybody to president to president. Except in this case, the incoming president, with a lot of parallels to our last, election 6 years ago or so, outgoing president, not so well liked, but not hated. Incoming president, full of promise and change. He gets this letter, and it's like, okay, so welcome to being the president. Things are going to be very challenging because everything that I've done, here's why I've done it. All the wars that I started, well, we found something in space that's approaching Earth, and we don't know what it is. So in order to prepare ourselves, we needed to have a fighting force. So we got some wars going so that we'd have a military force that was actually combat ready. All the weird economic things I did with industry and things like that, all because of this as well. Good luck. Oh, and if you don't believe me, go talk to your Joint Chiefs of Staff. They know the details. Bang. And of course the president's like, yeah, whatever. He goes and talks to the guys. They're like, yeah, it's all true. Here are the details. Oh, you want to talk to the astronauts? We can pull them up on screen right now. And again, there's a spacecraft almost out to the asteroid belt where they found this mysterious object. And he's now stuck with dealing all this. All of his plans that he had coming in are now moot. He has to deal with this problem, which literally affects the entire world. And pretty much the United States is the only nation that knows about this. End of the first issue. Bang. Amazing. Second issue, we get the perspective from the team on the spacecraft. And then it kind of goes from there. Like any good book, it's not just about, oh, there's these guys in space, and oh, here's the president dealing with it. There's all kinds of behind-the-scenes machinations going on. In the third issue, something really bad happens to one of his advisors, And then in the 4th issue, there's a nice comeuppance to that. Even though it's like the world is ending, the people still have their own agendas. It's like we don't know what's happening, but these guys still want to make sure that they're in power. It's a very interesting twist. When I first started this book, it was a great concept. And it's actually gotten better from issue to issue. And it's no surprise that after the first issue came out, the book was actually optioned for a TV show. This is a high concept that surprisingly nobody's ever thought of before. And if they have, I've never been aware of it. It's a great book with solid art. It's tackling things that you think are very familiar, but in all the pieces put together, it's kind of new. Really, really love this book, and can't wait for the next issue.
Nathan Edmondson and Phil Noto have masterfully crafted an amazing story that is incredibly grounded and provides a very intricate and personal insight into one of Marvel's most unique, lethal, and obviously sexiest characters. In the same style as we are currently seeing in the phenomenal Hawkeye book being written by Matt Fraction and drawn by David Aja, fans and newcomers to the Marvel U are getting a very realistic take and different angle on what it is to be a superhero, or, in this case, a master assassin, in a world where you have Iron Man, Hulks, and dudes with hammers just blowing stuff up all the time. First off, let's talk about Phil Noto's artwork. This man's stroke of a pen, pencil, brush, or whatever he's using is masterful, to say the least. The color tones he uses are intense weapons of truly setting the mood and overall tone of this book. The manner in which Natasha is drawn makes her incredibly exotic, yet deadly sexy. Depends on what scene she's in. Let's not forget about Nate Edmondson, his dialogue. It really makes every panel and verbal sequence in the book all the more interesting. For example, the relationship the Black Widow has with her quote-unquote handler, who looks like he also doubles as a lawyer and an accountant, and as the reader will come to find out, a bit of a serious badass himself. Their banter back and forth is really great and very genuine. All of these elements put together make for an outstanding story that makes you forget that this red-headed Russian bombshell also belongs to the Avengers, a team that saves the world and sometimes the universe on a weekly, if not annual basis. If you're getting a little overwhelmed and tired of the crazy antics of our superheroes and the over-the-top fantasy epics and crossovers and this and that, then you need to pick up this book and see what a day in the life of a human killing machine is really like when she's not, in outer space or time traveling or doing God knows what with her other acquaintances she has. All right. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Now, back to the over-the-top, super-action summer blockbuster heroics we've all come to know and love from Marvel. Brought to you in part by Marvel superstar head writer Jonathan Hickman with co-writer Nick Spencer and artist Stefano Caselli. What amazing book is this that I speak of? Well, it's properly titled Avengers World, starring every single person who has ever been or even considered an Avenger at one point or another in their life or career. Sorry. Now, let me start by saying that I lost track of comics a long ways back, around the Secret Invasion event, and I'm just catching up now on everything. But to be able to jump onto a book like this, of this magnitude, cold, without any prior knowledge of what's happened in the last year or two, and just drawn in again, and get excited by every panel and page turn, it's a really great comforting thing, and reminds me why comic books are such a great medium and outlet for people. Now, the first issues are a great setup, and make for a very brand new interesting take on AIM. For those of you who don't know, that's Advanced Idea Mechanics. No more we are taking over the world with science, per se, but it's a lot more borderline cosmic/religious, which makes this encounter very eerie and somewhat scary. The dialogue between characters is great, along with the amazing artwork from Stefano Caselli, who has grown by leaps and bounds as an artist ever since his first big Marvel project on Avengers Academy, and as we all know, Secret Warriors, another amazing book. I feel like this book is going to be a bit of a sleeper hit and be an important piece to the Marvel Universe as a whole to set up big events and also tackle them head on, especially with the huge ensemble that this team has assembled for it. Don't be surprised if there are a few special guests or a lot of special guests to start popping up, causing problems, or eventually helping with them. Okay, so that's this episode of Variant Edition.
Hopefully we didn't screw up anything, but I promised Lewis that even if we did, I'd still release it. So if you noticed anything, quiet you.
I'm sure it can't be anything that bad. It's like one of us forgetting to check the audio.
Yeah, it's hard to release an episode when there's no audio. But like I said, we've learned.
Once again, we'd like to thank a Little Shop of Comics in Scotch Plains, New Jersey for their help in getting us relaunched.
Expect a lot more from Little Shop as we start to shoot episodes from their awesome store.
Now, we're still working on our website, variantedition.com, but you can always find our episodes on YouTube, Blip TV, and iTunes.
And if you're enjoying the return of Variant Edition, be sure to share this episode on Facebook or on Twitter.
And like we said before, we are looking to expand. If you live in the New York, New Jersey area, let us know. If you don't live near us, but you still want to contribute in any kind of way, we'll have more info about that in the next episode. If you know someone who might be interested, let them know.
Yeah, definitely let them know. Remember, send us feedback. Good, bad, ugly, we want it all. So watch, comment, share, give us feedback. And if you're a creator, contact us. We're always glad to talk about new projects, review new books, or have you on the show for interviews.
Okay, that's it for this episode. We'll see you in 2 weeks with more footage from the New York Comic Con. We've got some cool stuff still to show you.
Cool.